Hello, loves. Welcome to day 24. Happy holidays. Bringing to you some breath, clarity, hopefully some insight, and some body compassion. We're going to keep this relatively short and sweet. We're going to come back to The Drummer and the Great Mountain. This is a guidebook to transforming adult ADD, ADHD by Michael Joseph Ferguson. To recap again, which I have been doing in all of these videos since the intro video to this mini series within our broader daily December series. And maybe I'll make a playlist of just these videos that we've been working through this visioning process with. But the essential components of visioning is that no matter what specific process that you use, the visioning should accomplish the following things: provide clarity about what you want to create, clarify what you don't want to create a basic roadmap to work from. Those are the three things: what you want, what you don't want, and a basic roadmap to help guide you towards the direction that you know you want to travel. So for those of us who have some very creative minds that tend to go off in different directions, this can be a really helpful process to come back to, or simplifying those three steps that, regardless of what process you're working with, because we might start to want to get very creative with our processes, that they always help refine those things: what I want, what I don't want, and how are we finding our way there? I think this is going to get me there, and breaking it down into manageable tasks. So we started with getting clear about our talents and abilities in the first sort of like practice session that had an exercise in this very specifically, after exploring the broader clarity of what we want, what we don't want, and our roadmap. Then we went into exploring our subconscious, envisioning step 2, and mining our daydreaming for clues. And all of the worksheets and printouts are in the self-care garden for those of you who'd like to join. And we are also meeting once a month on Sundays, 10 a.m., second Sundays of the month, for like a little connection Zoom to be in practice together, maybe a little meditation to take a little community temperature, and just to feel the power of co-regulation and consciously tuning into being with our bodies somatically and finding that body belonging in ourselves and sharing that with one another. Join me there if you'd like the printable downloads, or if you'd like to join once a month. And it's $33 a month, but I also have an accessibility tier for $3 a month. So for anyone who access is a stretch as far as financial resourcing, you can, as little as 3, join, or if there's something comfortable for you between the 3 and 33, you can make the adjustment there too. And if you're really feeling very flourishing and you want to pass it forward, pay it forward, you can also increase your $33 a month amount if you really enjoy and value the work that I'm doing and want to help give me communication to keep going and to keep sharing. And comments can do the same thing. Like button, share button, all of that can do the same thing too. So if you're finding value and you want to share the wealth, those are some of the ways you can do that. So this is 2 days ago. Visioning step 3, long-term goals in specific areas of your life where I'd like to be in. And then we filled in the blank 5 years time from now in different categories. We did health and body, work, relationships, creative expression, finances, service, spirituality, home, travel, adventure, and possessions. Then we yesterday did our visioning step 4, where we went from long-term goals to short-term goals. So we did a mapping short-term goals. We chose one of those sections of our long-term goals, and I had one that I just remembered from the embodiment prior, and we broke that down into short-term goals, clarifying a bit more of our mapping process. And today is visioning step 5, where we're going from short-term goals to doable actions. The next step is to take your short-term goals and turn them into doable actions that can be added to your action item list and or your weekly schedule. So I want to place special emphasis on the term doable action. Maybe you relate to this. I have a tendency to also have too many actions that have too many parts and pieces. And I've learned to work with myself over the years to really break things down. Where I used to have like one action item and I really felt and thought it was one thing to do, I would start to go, okay, my system feels overwhelmed and I have a challenge with focus. How can I break that action item up into as many steps as I'm tracking that I need to take? And so for me, that could be as simple as like, if I had to mail a letter, it was, or maybe pay a bill, it was like, write out the check, fill out the form, put it in the envelope, then seal the envelope, put a stamp on, address it, and then put it in the mailbox. Because I would get distracted or I would forget where I left off, or I'd start doing it and I'd feel overwhelmed at that point in my life. It was challenging for me. Now I have an easier time of like, okay, certain things that I used to break down a lot, once I got used to all of the steps. So this was like when I was new to paying bills, right? Once I got used to all the steps and I was able to, sometimes I still needed to break it down that much, depending on what else was going on in my life. If I was feeling flooded, overwhelmed, or I just had a lot of emotions going on, I didn't have a lot of capacity. And so I would need to really give myself something that I could lean into in order to come back and reference where I left off or what needs to happen still, and then tune into my body and check, like, maybe I can't do all 7 steps, but can I do 3? Maybe yes, also maybe no. Okay, maybe if I can't do all 3, can I do 2? Maybe. How about 1? Yeah, that first one we can do. Or that first one actually is the one that's stressing us out, and that's the one we need more time with, or we need to do other things before we get to that first step, because that's the hardest one and the rest actually would be easy. So learning about myself by breaking things down in that way has been really valuable for me. So maybe there's some insight in there for you too, or maybe you relate to that. And I would love to know in the comments whether you have your own tools that work for you and what you've noticed about yourself along the way with tasks. Okay, the doable action. I want to place special emphasis on the doable action. And it says, for example, if your short-term goal is run a full-length marathon within a year, and you presently don't engage in any kind of regular exercise routine, it may be unrealistic to start with an action like run every day for 1 hour. More doable action would be something like place a reminder on my calendar to jog twice a week for 20 minutes. Turning goals into actions. So this is the exercise, turning goals into actions today. Starting with just the first short-term goal for each long-term goal, list a series of actions you can take right away to address this goal. Revisiting your previous example, if your short-term goal is study filmmaking, take classes, read books, etc., start listing a number of actions you can take right away to reach this goal. It may look something like this: research filmmaking books on the internet. Do a search for best books on filmmaking. Read reviews and order books. 2, go to the local library and check out books on filmmaking, or search online and collect resources about filmmaking. Watch filmmaking tutorial videos on the internet. That's a good start, but you may want to carve out specific times in your schedule each week to address this short-term goal. So you may want to add to your list every Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m., study filmmaking, and then write it in my calendar. I love that. So you not only study, but then you mark it and you write it in your calendar. So there's some sort of like doable action and then intentional clarity in written form. And I know I'm doing the embodiment version of these things, but these are such wonderful practices to also do in like the handwritten thing. And perhaps I'll go back and do that. And also in my body, it's like, that's not the point for you right now. You do that with a lot of different things. So, but sharing this process with you, I guess, is my reason for clarifying that. So if you have a big list of actions, you may want to whittle down a bit, prioritize, and get to a list of the most important and potentially effective actions to address this short-term goal. In this way, go through each long-term goal, choose the first short-term goal, and repeat the process. Once you have your list of action steps, the next step is to add them to your action list and ideally onto your calendar. See, I read that and I go, that's too many. That's what happens to me. Like, I'd have to map out for me the practice, not just read what he said, but I'd have to actually like map out my goals and then clarify how I'm going to communicate the short-term goals, and then see the other, like, list, okay, how many do I have to get through, like count them, so that I'm like aware of the processes of it. I don't think it's as hard as my brain goes, like, that's scary when I read it. So, but if your mind goes, that's scary, that sounds like a lot. And maybe it's not, maybe you're like, great. But if it is, just know that I feel you. Okay. So we'll go into this process in more detail in the time management chapter. So I don't know that we'll do that. Maybe we will, maybe we won't at some point here. But if you do want to also make sure you get to that time management chapter, or if you really like how this book is flowing and working, then I'll leave the link down below so you can find. I've been leaving the links to resources down below each time, but that way you can find the book for yourself, for your own resource. Okay. For me, just because I'm a time crunch, and also because I'm not doing the like the listing, the actual, like, I'm doing listing in my experience and embodiment, but I don't have a physical tangible list I can look back on for reference right now. I'd have to go back into the videos and then make the list out of the videos, which I just don't want to do right now, which is okay. We're gonna make that okay. Okay. Pockets, go back in the dress. Okay, so I am now breaking down my short-term goal that I did in yesterday's video into doable action steps. So first, I feel the desire to clarify yesterday's short-term goal, which was all about money and resourcing and feeling like there's actually enough in my life, and that there's like consistency that feels consensual. So what I found was, in the prior day, the long-term goal was, for this particular section, was that I wanted to dance with the energy of what it felt like to be resourced and resourcing in my somatic version, my body-based version of like moving through the energy patterns of what finances, my desire for being able to pay my rent in a way that feels solid and stable and clear, can be held. And then from there, I was able to move into a clarity of yesterday in that practice, utilizing that to get curious about what are the short-term goals around that. So I translated some things. The ones that's coming up to my mind right now is, I really remember talking about consent and expressing and exploring the work of this other book that I've been using. I'll link this down too if you like it. The Art of Receiving and Giving, The Wheel of Consent by Betty Martin. And how bringing these practices, this clarity, this structure that are provided in the work in that book, can help me feel like I'm really distilling down the pieces that go into the swirl, so that I don't just go, I'm swirling, where am I? It feels very much like, okay, this is the quadrant of this kind of expression. And by that, I mean, I feel like it's important to reference right now. She has this wheel of consent right here, divided into 4 quadrants. So we have to serve, to take, to allow, and to accept. And so allow and accept are things that someone is like, the thing is done to that person. To serve, to take are the people that are doing, or the action, right? The serve and allow are in a giving process, and the accept and the take are in a receiving process. And I love that kind of clarity. So she utilizes things oftentimes for physical touch, physical practitioner. She has been a certified surrogate partner, sacred, intimate, and somatic sex educator. And I talk about this a lot, but our creative energy as performing artists is something I hold as sacred, intimate, and I see creative energy as sexual energy in many ways, because of the polarity practice in both of them, that there is a giving and receiving component. There is a formless and formed aspect. There is often a lot of dynamics that play out in our romantic or sexual partnerships that either have the potential to or already are part of the way in which we move in creative partnerships or creative community or creative connection with our own solo practices. And a lot being self-care for performers is also, I'm really aware, like the performing artist utilizes aspects of their body to show up as the gift, right? And so there's a degree of also, I know how much my work also comes into the somatic plane, the body-based plane, feeling that you belong in your body, but also helping your body feel like your body belongs with you in your life and that we're not bypassing things. I feel like I'm very aware that like now I'm just like telling you about stuff as opposed to moving through my little doable action steps. So, but from this, I can gather that what I want to do, what I need to do is share with you, that's an action step, share with you more about this book, share with you more about Betty Martin's work, learn more about Betty Martin's work, practice more of her exercises that are available. And there's something that feels so nourished and nourishing about being able to utilize someone who's had over 40 years of working in her field that has synthesized and clarified a lot of those practices down in a direction of what I feel my body receive as more safety, even as I'm aware that there's sort of fear of the taboo. And this feels really important to say, but as a mixed race Asian American woman, who actually wanted to be a dancer and a performing artist. And one of those things was a dancer and a massage therapist. I've been on the receiving end of a lot of jokes about the sort of identity that holds in people's idea of how like sexual favors or sexual expression are also part of that. And while there's definitely like a sensuality that I love to feel in certain dance connections, and there's a degree of like physical just connection that happens in massage, I also have felt very unsafe in certain environments, either mostly in the massage realm more than the dancing realm. I felt like because as a performer there was a little more distance, but as a massage therapist you can be very vulnerable in a room with someone, and if they have an idea of why they're coming to get a massage that they don't communicate and ask for consent with, like I've had very uncomfortable situations, and I've definitely had clients that I've had to ask the front desk to not book me with anymore. And some of them I wasn't clear or sure if like the experience was like an accident or intentional. And I think that for me, there's something about this concept of checking in with consent that also feels like maybe these are my action steps, like that I don't go further than that yet. Like my action steps need to really focus right now on consent, understanding consent, studying consent, finding clarity of like what that looks like. So I do want to finish out action steps. I do want to finish out this visioning section of, and we're almost done. I think we only have like 1 or 2 exercises left in this little mini series for the drummer in the Great Mountain that we've been working with in the book. And so maybe my intention, my goal is to synthesize more of the core content. What I can do right now, action step, hold the book that you want to connect with that you feel like is medicine. Okay, step 1. And then listen for clear action steps. Be in practice with my friends. I did this yesterday, last night. We did one of the practices. Read 20 minutes a day from this book. Great. Love it. Go back to Betty Martin's Instagram page and spend time there to see how she has her resources set up and what her framework of coaching looks like, and just feel into that for now without a reason why. Just like go there and spend time in connection. I think that's enough for today. Like those are my action steps. So that was hold the book, which I'm holding. Hold the book, connect with the book, attune to the book. So spend some somatic connection with the book. And then, and I'm going to do that every day. I'm going to take a moment and just like bring it to my heart. We'll say that every moment I'm going to take 20 seconds and just be with the energy that the book holds and allow the symbolism that it represents in my life to just land in my heart. And then ask if my body has consent to read for 20 minutes or a different amount of time, if that is what is needed for today. And in her consent practices, the one we did yesterday, it was a lot about like, if I'm making this agreement with myself, so this is me working consensually with myself as opposed to interrelationally with another person, but it would be to like my mind and my body to have a consenting practice, all while channeling through the heart. So the mind might say, body, will you sit down and read for 20 minutes? And the body might say, absolutely yes, because it feels like a yes, but to pause for the 20 seconds to wait and see how my body feels. And if the body has a full yes, then I can say yes and I can do that. And if my body has a full no, then I listen to my body and I allow that to be the case. Or if my body has a yes, but can you clarify like how we're going to do it, where we're going to sit, like what is it that you want? Or maybe, but I would need to do it this way. Would you still like to do that? Or is there something else that you'd like to do instead in this moment? In regards to the book, if there's consent to work with the book, which at least in this moment, there is the consent to commit to doing that on a daily basis. What I'm going to say through to the end of the month. And I'm not going to identify whether or not we're going to utilize those practices specifically in these videos, because that feels important to leave that a little bit like moment to moment, day by day, consensual. But I think I will ask myself every day if there's consent for that. I'm going to keep asking myself about somatic consent, about what is the next thing to bring into connection? What is the next thing my body registers as consensual to do in relationship with self-care for performers and you? Okay, that's it. If you enjoyed this, give me a little like and a subscribe, and then maybe share with a friend. And I would love for you to join me over on the Self-Care Garden. And if you would like some deeper support, some more clarity around befriending your own body, learning to listen to it, being with the stillness, and having someone help you track your somatic experience so that you can be in right relationship with the way in which your mind-body connection dynamics are working. This is the heart and soul of my work, and I love it so much, and I would love to receive you. So all the links to continue connecting are below in the description, and I'll see you tomorrow.